shortly after that, I got robbed while I was in the house, and they took a lot of my work stuff. They took my laptops. They took pretty much everything I needed for work. And so this year has really just been like boom, 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 boom. Like just these things kept kind of happening. And I'll never say like, oh, life is happening to me.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today I am joined by Damian Schechter, and I hope I pronounced that right. I obviously have a very difficult name to pronounce, and I totally understand how frustrating that is when people don't pronounce it right. So Damian, welcome to the show. Can you just do a little bit of an introduction for yourself so that the listeners know exactly who you are and what you stand for?
Sure. Dan, dude, thank you so much for having me here. I really, really, really appreciate it. And I'm glad that we connected a couple of weeks back. So my name is Damian Schechter, and I am the owner and founder of the All-Rounder Coaching Systems. I've been a personal trainer for the past 10 years, but spent predominantly the last year and a half working online. I'm actually from South Africa. I'm 30 years old. And currently living in Portugal, and just enjoying the weather, soaking up the sun, and really just enjoying what I'm doing abroad. Working with incredible people from all over the world, and have the opportunity to do things like this, jump on podcasts with like-minded individuals. So it's definitely what I love doing. So thank you so much for having me here.
Not a problem at all. And I think that for me, I say this all the time, one of the reasons why I started this podcast, it was back in, the lockdown phase of history, where I just wanted to have conversations with like-minded individuals and talk about things that interested me, have conversations with people that I wasn't having with my friends. I didn't have the option to, and I thought that it was such a valuable thing, not the sense that I was talking to people, but it gives people the opportunity to be able to listen in on conversations that they're potentially not even having themselves.
For sure. This is something that, me being very isolated, I think this is something we can both resonate with quite a bit. You're in India, not many friends or family. I'm in Portugal with practically no friends or family. And so, we're both kind of in a very, like, let's say, isolated position here, where you can't just, walk outside and be connected with like-minded individuals. So, this is also one of the reasons why I started my podcast 2 months ago. Is so that I can at least have a little bit more interaction with people. When I go to the gym here, a lot of people speak Portuguese, so it's not that easy to connect. Especially if you're a foreigner, for example, you're the foreigner. You're not, kind of one of the homies that you can just have a little bit of banter with. So, I do try and connect with people in the physical realm, but I think this is our line of work. This is where we spend most of our time on the online space. And so that's what I really enjoy about the podcasting idea is to connect with like-minded individuals and have the conversations with people that you can't just have with anyone.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think I'd love to start there, actually. The fact that you're living in Portugal, it's an exciting prospect. Lots of people that get into the industry want to live that laptop lifestyle. We'll get onto that in a second, but I think that the fact that you're living in a different country, as am I, it always fascinates people. So talk to me about your experience, how you came over to Portugal, what the inception of that idea was, and how it is where you are.
Right. So myself and my ex-partner, we came to Portugal on holiday for a few days. And I really seriously fell in love with this place. We came to Albufeira in the Algarve. It's absolutely beautiful. We came in the middle of winter. Everything was closed. Shops were closed. Hotels were even closed. And it was just quite a ghost town. But middle of winter, it was still 20, 22 degrees, still on the beach. And so, that for me was seriously a wake-up call because I was already working online for, let's say, 8 months in Amsterdam before this. But, coming from an Amsterdam winter, working online most of the time indoors, not getting that exposure to sun, this was also kind of coming off of COVID and the lockdown, so spending a lot of time indoors. It was the first time I actually feel like I experienced seasonal depression. and depression to an extent. I was really feeling burnt out at the beginning of the year. And so we took a 5 day trip to Portugal, and just to see that massive contrast of, okay, we're still in winter, we're still in a winter Europe, and this is what the situation back home in Amsterdam is, and I'm doing this type of work, and this is what the situation is in Portugal, and I can still do this type of work here. It's still the euro, you're still nice and central to most other, neighboring countries. So, we came here for 5 days, and I think it was within the first hour that we decided to move here. And so we spent 5 days. We went back to Amsterdam, packed our stuff up within 4 weeks, and a month later we were in Portugal. So, you know, the I think the blessing of online coaching allowed me to be able to work wherever I want to, and to be able to find a place that was more conducive to sunlight exposure, to outdoor life. Obviously having a dog, much better for him. The quality of life here is better for human and animal. So it was just a little bit of a no-brainer, and online coaching being the catalyst, to be able to be remote and to kind of choose a place that you want to be. That was really something that I couldn't have found in the past 9 years of personal training. It would have, to move your life over to a different country when you're a personal trainer, you lose your clients. Whereas there was only benefit to coming here because I was at a much better, let's say, peace of mind that I could focus more on my work. So in some areas, work picked up. But obviously there were some areas, once you do move to a more relaxed lifestyle, you can also, let's say, take your finger off the pulse and maybe the foot off the gas a bit. And so it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful how you handle a situation like this kind of move.
I think it's a really interesting area, really, because I think online or any online business really gives you a massive amount of freedom. It gives you a massive amount of ability to be able to do and reach whoever you want. But as you said, it really comes with a lot of risk, in my opinion. I think it comes with, as you said, if you're living in an area where the lifestyle is completely different, you've now got the option to, go to the beach. You've got the option to do things that you wouldn't normally do in your day-to-day life, which would be considered more of like a holiday kind of mode. It's so easy to take your finger off the trigger and all of a sudden be in a position where you're enjoying life a lot and you're not taking on the responsibilities that you should do. And I've been guilty of it too. So it's interesting that you mentioned that with being in India. When I first got here, I was super focused and on the pulse of everything. And then after a couple of months, after a couple of weeks, really, I started to explore India more, started to really enjoy the lifestyle, really, things that you can't do in the UK. The weather's incredible here. So, there's obviously the beaches and everything. So it's really was difficult. You really have to be much more disciplined to get everything done that you need to get done. So it's interesting actually that you experienced exactly the same.
This is what happened to
there.
me. Yeah, this is exactly what happened to me. And it really actually fucked everything up, if I can just put it in layman's terms. The idea of, laptop life, like sick, cool, I get to work wherever I want. I get to travel the world.
Yeah.
Sure, but you better have a structure in place to facilitate that transition because, I came here and all of a sudden it was, we're in Algarve, it's like the lifestyle is great, spend more time outside, walk the dog, go to the gym when you want. But the reality is that, like, bro, you've got 50 clients that you need to service. And all of a sudden taking, 2 to 3 days out of your week to go and explore, it's, and you've also got a relationship that you need to, stay on top of. You've got clients that also are paying you a lot of money and, deserve your attention and time and effort. And so I did let it slip. I will admit 100%. And, this was also a point then when I reached out and I actually asked for help. So, I think it was January, February, March, April, May, June. Yeah, about June, I reached out and I asked for help from Kieran from Total Mental Performance. because I just found that the move had definitely affected my mindset a lot. I think
Yeah.
I thought that it was going to be a lot easier, making a transition like this. And, when I saw that actually business started to take a bit of a knock, how that negatively affected my mindset, it really put me in like a little bit of a place of despondency and not knowing if I was making the right decisions and the right like career choices. And so that's also where I reached out and I asked for help, and glad to have had that guidance, because if I didn't have someone or a fly on the wall per se to offer me a second perspective, who knows, it might have continued to snowball for the past 4 or 5 months. And I could have either been out of
Yeah.
business, or I could continue to thrive.
I think it's definitely true. As an industry, it's become kind of so popular, the laptop lifestyle. And of course, some elements of it are true. And like I said, I've touched on this a few times with the different guests, but it comes with a lot of responsibility. As you say, you've got clients that are completely reliant on you, on your programming, on your support, on your accountability. So yeah, it does give you the opportunity to work from anywhere in the world, but ultimately you need that structure in place. You need that discipline to be able to remember. Ultimately, your priority is those clients. So just disappearing off for a week and exploring a country and not being available is obviously terrible for business. You're not going to progress in the way that you should. And I know that
For sure.
over the last few months, you've really transitioned into a lot more of focusing on the mindset and these physical challenges and doing crazy things. And I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that all of this is linked. You wanted to hold yourself to a higher standard and be more accountable.
110%, man. So, I, for full transparency, I was lying there last night, as I mentioned before this call. Today's
Mm-hmm.
obviously a little bit of a bittersweet day with, rehoming my dog. And a lot of people would listen to that and probably, have their opinions and say, well, very selfish to get a dog if you're going to give it away. But, everyone's got, I've got my reasons that, I obviously spoke about this, and it's for the best for myself, for him. But I was lying here on the couch last night crying my fucking eyes out with him, because it's really just been like, this is kind of the cherry on the top with a lot of things, but this really has been a fucking challenging year. Like, this, honestly, this has been, I think, one of the biggest breakthrough years of my life, undoubtedly. There've been many highs,
Mm-hmm.
many lows, and a copious amount of turning points. And I think that one of the main things was, firstly, moving here was, being taken out of a comfort zone. But the reality is that before moving here, I was already out of a comfort zone, living in Amsterdam for 3 years. I'm from South Africa, so
Mm-hmm.
to take me out of where my friends, my family, everything is, and put me in Amsterdam, that was quite a shift already. But like, I think I managed that really well. I had a bit of a support structure there, but then coming here, you've taken me out of a semi like unstable time in my life to an even more like, okay, dude, now you're in Portugal. Like, now you really don't know what the fuck is happening here. You're trusting your gut. You're going to a beautiful country with great food and good people, and you're going to embrace it. But I think that move, here was probably one of the best things, but also it did set off, let's say, a little bit of I don't want to say a chain of events, but it was definitely kind of like the starting point of what this year had in store for me. And so I think the first thing,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, we just discussed was the work was, that was quite difficult to adjust, and take yourself out of a holiday destination mindset and put it in and go back into a working mindset where you have structure, you're diligent, you're focused, you've got your shit together. That was already kind of a shift, and I think I lost a bit of business because of that. And or at least I didn't accumulate as much business as I could have, because I was spending more time exploring or doing things, or just being distracted. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then there were obviously a few other, let's say, situations, with me and my partner, for example, where, we started to have, I think, because of my workload, because of the amount of time that I was putting into the business, and the amount of energy that I was giving others, and not necessarily us as a unit. that kind of led to a little bit of a demise, in our relationship. And, I won't go too deep there, it is what it is. But that
Hmm.
had to obviously, at some point come to a bit of an agreement and a bit of an end. And, then shortly after that, I got robbed while I was in the house. And, they took a lot of my work stuff. They took my laptops. They took pretty much everything I needed for work. And so, this year has really just been like boom, 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 boom. Like just these things kept, kind of happening. And, I'll never say like, oh, life is happening to me. Like, unfortunately, I do take responsibility and accountability for everything. I might have even left the door unlocked the night that I got robbed. So, there's maybe even a little bit of responsibility from mine there. But, there was a lot of things that, can either cripple you or they can enable you to dig a bit deeper, to build on that. And at the right time, I had Kieran, as I mentioned, from TMP come into my life. And, all of these things were just kind of happening one after the other. And he mentioned to me, you have a clean slate, you have a blank canvas, and you can
Hmm.
honestly design the life that you really want. And when he said that, I was like, right, I actually wrote down a bucket list a few months ago, and I'm going to go for it. And I'm going to actually do these things that I knew inside of me, because the bucket list was more of like a wish list more than it was like a task list, right? So, I had this wish list of things that like I thought would be pretty awesome to chase one day. And, we had our first conversation, our first breakthrough call, and I said, that's it. I'm actually going all in on this bucket list. I'm going to get really uncomfortable. I'm going to put myself in positions that are going to require me to grow and to, maybe get out of the monotony of sitting on a computer all the time doing the same thing. Because if I don't grow, I
Yeah.
cannot offer this grown person to other people. I can make myself out to seem a little bit more professional than what I am, or more experienced than what I am, or that I've gone deeper as a coach to be able to understand clients a bit better. But here's the reality: is that, dude, you're not going that deep. You are maybe stuck in a place where you haven't, explored yourself fully. You haven't explored your likes, your dislikes. What are the things that you haven't tried that maybe could change your life? So I really went deep into wanting to do things that I'd never done before. Um,
Hmm.
and so I started kind of, yeah, chasing a bit of a bucket list in the midst of all this craziness. And it's been, yeah, dude, like it's been a complete 180. And I've definitely, I've really experienced some incredible things and people over the past few months.
Mm. It's exceptional to hear, because so much of what you've been through over the last 6 months, a year, are things that could potentially have crippled you, and probably did at some points. And I think that there's something very, very interesting about the mindset of, a clean slate, because it's so easy in those moments of, extreme pain, upset, anguish, high stress, to go self-destructive, to be not the best
100%.
version that you could possibly be. And I think,
100%.
I've done therapy, and something that I really love is psychology. And for me, being the best version that I can be is something that's so important to myself. So I will reinvest back into myself, whether it's educational in terms of nutrition, training, or mindset in terms of therapy, or performance mindset, or even business mentoring. For me, I think we need to keep developing. We need to, because we're only given a certain set of tools by our parents, and it doesn't necessarily mean that those are functional and very good tools for life. They're not going to necessarily equip you for the best quality of life. And the fact that I think the majority of people, I realized in my life, had stopped investing in themselves after school. They weren't
Yeah,
trying to relearn new techniques. They weren't trying to learn how to get better at anything. And it's not a dig. I don't mean that to throw shade at anyone. I just mean that as a, if that's what
it's
you
the
want from
truth.
your life, that's fine. If you're happy with that, that's fine. Like, that's you. But for me, it wasn't. I wanted to continue developing and to continue growing and learn. And that's when I feel like I'm thriving in life. That's when I feel like I'm doing the best that I can be, when I'm continually
For
checking
sure.
boxes and pushing that stone a little bit further up the hill. So I love that.
For
Talk to me
sure.
a little bit more about how the the mentoring from TMP kind of really enabled you to push through those areas of discomfort, and then what that taught you.
That was hands down. As you mentioned, I've never, most of us never really fully invest after school. And you know, this is now 12 years after I finished school. It was, aside from maybe my studies as a PT, and
Mm-hmm.
the qualifications that go with that, I haven't really fully invested, or at least like really fully invested. Like we're not talking like cents and pennies here. Like really saying, okay, this is a chunk of money. There's nothing tangible that you'll get back for it. This is going into improving your mindset, improving the way that you think, improving the way that you make decisions, and how you interact with people, and how you cultivate the life that you essentially want to live. And I was
Mm-hmm.
ready for this. I knew that my relationship wasn't going well. I knew that my business could be doing better. I knew that I had really good structure with my training, but to juggle all of these areas of my life, it was a challenge. I'll just put it like that. And so, sticking out my hand and asking for help from Kieran, I'd listened to many of his podcasts. I'd listened to pretty much all of his podcasts. And there was one moment in one of his podcasts with Simon Johnson where, he said, it's okay if you put your hand up and ask for help. The best thing that you can do is put your hand up and ask for help. So I put my hand up and asked for help, and I immediately voice noted Kieran, and he responded to me within a couple minutes. And yeah, so we got on a call, and I ended up working one-on-one in the evolution program with Kieran. And the initial question that was asked to me was, so if you walked away with what you came for, how would you know? And so my answer to that was, I would be a high performer. Fuck yeah. Like, that's, I think, the thing, right? Everyone these days wants to just be like a high performer, high performer, high performer. We all want to juggle a million hats and do an exceptional job with each one of them. But that was, I think, maybe kind of like the surface level label that I'd
Yeah.
put on what I wanted. But what I really wanted was to go into situations with full confidence. What I wanted to have no fear or no doubt or worry about the validation that I do or don't get from others when posting online, which would make me a more confident business owner and person. There were some issues that I needed to work through, and take ownership of, and also not take ownership of. For example, my childhood. How you as a child get treated. You know, if and I'll trace this back to, let's say, like a situation with my dad, right? Was, I never got out of my comfort zone. I never tried new things, because when I was a child, I wanted to try new things, but my dad would always say, no, there's no point in you doing that, because you're not going to follow through with it. So then what happened is, it compounded as I started to grow up. I stopped trying new things because I had this message in my head that, cool, you'll start, but you won't finish. There's no point in starting at all. And so, just kind of peeling off these layers back to situations where I was 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, seeing what happened in my life in middle school, and then high school, and then when I finished school, and how that affected my relationships, but also how my relationships affected me. Really, not, let's say, looking at the past as reasons or answers, but more for understanding that you know this happened to you. You were the victim in it. You didn't do anything wrong to be treated this way. So stop carrying this mindset through that you started things and you didn't finish. That's what you were told. But you, as an adult, have the opportunity to start things and finish them, right? And so the second that this was explained to me, the
Mm-hmm.
second that we worked through situations like this, that's when I started to also kind of dedicate myself to these bucket list items. And so, one of the first things that I started doing with the bucket list was scuba diving. Now, my biggest fear was going into the ocean. I can swim in the ocean. I'll go 5 meters out, 10 meters out. But the
Hmm.
second that I don't know what's below me, the second that I'm far away from anyone just being at a hand's distance to help me, I don't like that feeling.
Hmm.
That freaks me the fuck out. If I'm in a lake and I know that there's nothing below me, I still don't like the fact that there's 20 meters or 10 meters, even for that matter, of something potentially touching my foot. Freaks me out. So, the ocean and the sea were things that, if I went on a boat with someone and everyone jumped into the ocean, there's no fucking ways I would. Or if I did, I would scurry back to the boat really, really fast to get out the water. And so, on this bucket list, I had all these things down. And the first thing was like, I want to be a scuba diver. I want to have that qualification. I want to actually explore the 70% of the world that 99% of the world have not explored and seen with their own eyes. And so that was the first thing that I started doing. And it was kind of coinciding with me being very introspective with my life and going a bit deeper, with understanding myself. At the same time, I was also going literally deeper than surface level when scuba diving. So metaphorically, I was really just trying to kind of break out of a comfort zone and break out of a place in my life that I'd become very complacent and okay to just not do heavy lifting, not emotionally, kind of understand myself at a deeper level. So that was one thing that obviously I then did my scuba, my beginners. I then went straight onto doing my advanced, and now we obviously want to go after the masters. So that's become a real passion of mine that I do really regularly. And I think just relating it back to a question here with the TMP was Kieran really worked with me to not be afraid to put myself in situations where, and it comes kind of down to anxiety almost, and like this could be financial, it could be emotional, where you kind of you stay away from things because you don't know how they're going to play out. You're worried that they're not going to work. You're worried that you're not going to finish.
Yeah.
And he really, really worked through that with me. And, we started that at like a 5-year-old onwards, level. So really kind of peeling back the layers to a point where I didn't even think of these things. There was a point in one of our calls that I had to sit there and speak. My father's passed away for about 4 years now, and I had to sit there and have this conversation with my dad. And, that was a very pinnacle point in the journey almost where your dad's not there, but he's listening. And you need to get these things off your chest and you need to say things that you've always wanted to say because otherwise you're going to carry this through with you. And no normal human is going to take me through an experience like that. Nobody, you know, sure, my friends are not going to do that, sit me down and make me have the conversation I've never had with my dad. My family won't do that. Nobody really takes a huge interest other than a mentor who you can trust to do that with you. And so that was Kieran for me and total mental performance. And he really made me go deep. And anyone that's listening, that's looking to really, yeah, just go on that journey. That was, man, yeah, that was absolutely best investment I've ever made. And I'll say it time and time over.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll put the details in the bio for that. It's really important, I think, and it's a powerful experience. I have had a similar experience with the therapy style that I used. I used internal family systems, and that is essentially very similar to what you've just described. It's almost a meditative state. I felt like I was stuttering then, but it's essentially exactly what you've said.
Mm-hmm.
You sit down and you shut your eyes. You kind of imagine that you're having a conversation with someone. It could be yourself. It could be a younger part of you. It could be a family member, and you just hash out. You ask questions. You're curious, and it can be very transformative. And going to that level is very, very uncomfortable. You're dealing with things that potentially you didn't necessarily know had affected you and actually have affected you, and the way that you think, the
Yeah.
way that you behave, the way that you function. I didn't know until I started therapy that one of the reasons why I have such an obsessive character was because of the things that had gone on in my life, and I was using that as a kind of a coping mechanism to escape rather than processing and functioning or making sure that I dealt with things. It was a case of the
For sure.
internal parts of me were trying to escape and not focus on the negatives and toxically positively. So, and going through that experience was another one of those moments for me where I really recognized quite early on in my life, fortunately, that whenever I got into these areas of discomfort or high anxiety states, or I was scared of something, if I'd pushed through that, it was the most rewarding and the way that I was going to grow the most. And as you have yourself, I started to search out ways that I could, get that like almost dopamine hit. Again, falling into that obsessive quality of myself, it was very much a case of what can I do next? What can I overcome next? And I think that leads me on nicely into your challenges. You've been doing a couple of crazy things recently, haven't you? And I know that you've got a couple crazy things more. So talk to me about that and what that
For sure.
challenge provided you and how you overcame those.
Right. So look, dude, I've been bodybuilding, or at least been in the gym for, let's say, since I was 16. I'm 30 now. So yeah, about 14, 15 years. I've been training. And so that's been a huge, kind of comfort zone, an area that, like I've always excelled in. I obviously, did quite a bit of bodybuilding, for about 4 or 5 years. And I won quite a few shows with that. I did very well. I had some good sponsors. So, the bodybuilding world for me has really been like a huge part of just who I am, what I do. But it's a big part of who I am, but it's not who I am. And it's not what I am, right? Like I still have other ambitions. I have other goals that I want to achieve. And, I've always kind of like let them lay dormant and never really fully pursued something that was out of my comfort zone. And so this year, obviously coming with its challenges, I found that something that was a challenge for me was to get into the water and to become, scuba diving competent. But that was the first thing on my bucket list, and I've got the bucket list in front of me here. And when I look at it, I put some things down in here that are pretty audacious. But I realized that the one thing that I was so uncomfortable with was possible, and I did it. And I was breathing underwater for 45 minutes. Like, that's insane. I was interacting with an octopus. Like, what the fuck? Why did you hold back for so long on doing these things, when they're not that difficult? Or if they were a challenge, if you do something enough times, it becomes easy. You enjoy it. So, other things when I look down here were, running a marathon. Coming from at one point in my bodybuilding career being 100 kilos, you go and get 100 kilos at like 7% body fat to go and run a marathon. Like, you're a bodybuilder, you are not a marathon runner. So I stuck away from things like this. And then moving on to that, competing in an Ironman, dude, know your place. You are not one of those athletes. You are a bodybuilder. And so, I wrote these things down because at some point in my life, I want to do these things. And I said, you know what? If you say at some point in your life you're never going to do it, now is the time. The time is now. Like, when are you going to commit to this? So those are the things that I started to, practice towards. And, I gave myself, this was now, 4 months ago that I'd written this bucket list. I immediately started becoming actionable about a month and a half, 2 months after that. And yeah, I started practicing for a marathon. I ran into a few knee issues, and that completely killed my idea of potentially even doing a half marathon. I was running 3 kilometers and then my knee would start hurting. So it went from this expectation of myself to do 42 kilometers to all of a sudden, dude, I don't even know if you'll be able to do 21, but you're still going to show up because you've committed to doing this, you've prepped for this, or you've at least done your absolute best to try. So last weekend was my 42 kilometer marathon, and starting line, I was very hesitant. I could feel my knee was not 100%. And then I'd already crossed the finish line in my head. That means I was going to either walk it drag myself there, limp it, whatever I needed to do, I was going to finish that. I was going to finish the race. So, obviously the marathon is, let's say, just one piece of, let's say, the Ironman puzzle, right? Because before you commit to an Ironman, you need to be able to run. So that's what happened is I completed the marathon. I set a really good time for myself. The knee was 100%. And now the next thing is the Ironman. And, just to be very clear, these are me getting extremely uncomfortable with what I'm used to. I'm not a runner. I'm definitely not a cyclist.
Mhm.
And I'm most certainly not a swimmer. But I'm becoming those things. And I'm putting myself in a really difficult position at the moment to try things that I know that I'm not good at. I know that I'm not a competent 180-kilometer cyclist. If you put me against a seasoned athlete, there's no ways I'm gonna get the same time or set the same pace. But it's not about the same time or the same pace. It's about me doing the things that I never thought I would or could do, and seeing how uncomfortable I can essentially get, and how I can, you know, find the most growth, because that's where it's going to happen,
Mm.
is in those times of being uncomfortable. The marathon at kilometer 38, there's two people that are on the side of the road crying because they're cramping. There's an ambulance that's going past me. There's someone else that's fainted because they're dehydrated. Like, it was a bit of a fucking war zone. And there'll be people that are listening to this that have probably done an ultra marathon and they're like, yeah, marathon's easy. But, you know, different levels, different devils. The 42K is still not a joke. It's a huge distance. And me seeing all of this kind of going on around me, and me still feeling pain in, let's say, my hips, in my ankles, build-up of lactic acid. There was a bit of fatigue. That, that really put me in a place where I was like, holy fuck, dude, this is a lot bigger than you. 42.6 kilometers is a lot bigger than you. And you can either be one of these people and it owns you, or you can push through and you can own it. And when I saw that finish line, man, the
Mm.
fact that I had done that personally for me was groundbreaking, because I never ever thought that I would be that person, that I would be that athlete. And so that's opened up huge possibility for the idea that now I know one of three have been done. I now need to focus on the cycle. I need to focus on the swim. I'll consolidate each one on
Mhm.
its own. I'll do the swim. Great. Now I've done the run and I've done the swim. Go do the cycle. Then you'll put all the pieces of the puzzle together. But you know, that will be growth. That will be success when I have done it. But the journey between now and then is equally going to be growth and success. And that's essentially what I'm after, man. As you mentioned, that's what fuels the fire. If you finish school and, you go straight into a sedentary, lifestyle or job where there's not much that like ignites the fire, it's very easy to monotonously become complacent. And I don't want that. I want growth. I want to one day have a partner that I'm giving my best to. I want to have a social circle around me of like-minded individuals. And what do you want those to be? You want those to be successful, driven people that have gone through challenges, that have gone through changes, that have gone through journeys that require them to be uncomfortable to see that growth. Everyone wants to be surrounded by successful, happy, healthy, driven people. And so I need to be that for myself, if that's essentially what I want at a later stage of my life. Sorry, that was quite a mouthful, but I think that gives you a good idea.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more, and I think that there's something that we spoke about, in the initial stages of this planning and just communicating, was I think that part of the issue is, as a man, there's so much complexities around being a healthy man. What is healthy masculinity? What is toxic masculinity? And what are the things that we should be doing and shouldn't be doing? I mean, some of those are very, very obvious points, but there's some things that I think that are currently being demonized that are almost fundamental to your fulfillment as a man. Being on your purpose, ticking things off,
100%.
achieving things. I think that's obviously, it's something that makes a lot of people happy, masculine and feminine, male and female. But I think there's so much at the moment that we're almost demonizing men for being men. And
being men.
yes, there's lots of toxic behavior that goes on. I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that at all, and I'm not making excuses for it. But for me myself, it's something that I've struggled with, and I've got a mentor. I told you about it briefly, who is literally his primary like goal is to make sure that the masculine society that we're in is mature and as thriving as possible, in the sense that it is positively masculine and it's not toxic, and it's making sure that the next generation of men are healthy, and we're working on our
100%.
purpose and those sorts of points. It's a really weird place that I think that we're in now in society, where you cannot be motivated, driven, or even kind of focused on business to an extent that people say to you, that's not normal. And I think that
Yeah.
it's difficult, and I think that we're competitiveness, it's a masculine trait. Of course, there are females that are competitive, but it is a masculine trait. And if we're talking spirituality, that's what I mean there. There's a great book that I'm reading at the moment called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. If you've not read that, read it. It's about the 4 male archetypes within the masculinity realm.
Right.
And there's also the female version of
I'll
that as
check
well.
that out
They have
for sure.
female archetypes. I'll be honest and be very blunt. I haven't read, and I have very little knowledge of the female ones. So my mentor Daniel will probably not like that. But in terms of the qualities that we need as a man, the idea behind that book is to be an embodied king. And what that means is an embodied king is not someone that is self-serving. It's someone that isn't tyrannical. It's someone that looks at everybody in their tribe and always serves them for the betterment of them. It's not self-serving. And I think that that's something that, as a society, men have been getting wrong. If we look at the government, if we look at politicians, they're not serving the greater need of the people. They're serving themselves in most
Not
cases.
at
If you
all.
look at CEOs of companies, they're looking after themselves, whereas we need embodied, healthy, masculine individuals. And for anybody that doesn't quite understand that analogy
100%.
yet, we have the embodied king in would be Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, someone that doesn't necessarily want the power, but will do it for the greater good.
100%. 100%, dude. Like, dude, I'm totally on board with it. I'm not going to pull like a Jordan B. Peterson, like take on this now, because
Yeah.
that generally does offend people. But, there's definitely, I think when we're talking, let's say, about competitiveness, in its own right, this is something that if I look at my bodybuilding career, or I look at the fact that, yeah, I'm now doing a marathon, I'm doing an Ironman, or, I'm competitive in nature. I like to do well. I think it's great to do well. I think, nobody that likes to do well is going to disagree with me saying that it's amazing to want to do well and amazing to be driven and not be sedentary, not be complacent. That's a system that we're kind of like all being suppressed into at the moment, right? Is like, oh, relax. It's okay to not be driven. It's okay to not want to, let's say, explore or optimize your true potential, your true health, your like what your body is capable of. We're all being told it's okay. Just relax. You're fine just the way you are. And like, this is obviously, this will go on to a topic that like I'm not going to spend any time on, but the whole body positivity movement per se. I think especially in our line of work, sure, I'm really happy that you are feeling good in your skin, but the reality is that like, if you're going to fully reach your true potential, this involves you being at your best health, because when you're at your best health, best body composition, you're getting in, let's say, a lot of really healthy food. You are being structured. You have routine. You're fully optimizing, let's say, your physical and mental well-being. You're going to be driven to be able to give a better part of yourself to the rest of the world. to the people around you. And so it actually works to your benefit to, let's say, as a man, at least, things are on this topic, reach your full true potential in every area. But of course, have the feminine, have the sensitive side of love, care, understanding. Like these are things that I think we, as men, sometimes we shy away from these emotions because there is, on the other side of things, a societal pressure for men to be X, Y, and Z. And yes, we should be X, Y, and Z. 100% we should always be X, Y, and Z. But let's not forget that there's also the ABCs, that we are still only human, and we can show emotion, and we can still have that softer side. But let's not let the ABCs make us now forget that we have the XYZs to still uphold our personal standard. We do have, let's say, and I heard Jordan B. Peterson say this the other day, we do have an expectation to build the infrastructure. We do still have like the expectation to provide to families. Like these are things that, we should take. And I fully do back those responsibilities. So, for me, at least, kind of relating this back to, let's say, my personal journey, that's what I want, is that I want to get uncomfortable to be able to grow and achieve these certain tools and certain ways of delegating and taking on things that are bigger than me and certain challenges, so that I can contribute, that I can be my best version of myself to friends, family, others around me that I care about, essentially.
Yeah, and I think that it's not necessarily a bad message to say to people that you can be better. Not that you're bad as it is, but to give people the
You
kind
can be
of, I
better.
think, yeah, and like you said, I think there's a societal pressure or expectation at the moment that you should be okay with like whatever situation you're going through, or wherever you are in life. And I think that it's not necessarily a bad message to say to people, you could be better. Like let's face the facts. In whatever situation you are, there's
Yeah.
always more. Now that obviously can be
But then
taken
it
to an
becomes a witch
extreme,
hunt.
but
Yeah.
yeah, and that's the issue we're facing. I think that it's a really polarizing environment, and as soon as I don't even want to go there. Like, let's be honest, when we're talking about people and what's happened over social media that stand up for masculine values, there's people that get banned very quickly because it's a dangerous ground to tread. But let's talk about the control. Let's talk about how we can get through those moments of pain, and using yourself as an example, getting through that marathon, when you're seeing other people in such agony, in such a plight, and it would be easy for you in that situation to just join them at the side of the road. How do you
Yeah.
fight through that and focus on the end goal?
Um, I compared this to like a little bit of a war zone, right? And I think if you think about it like that, you've got all these wounded. Like this is obviously, like, I obviously don't want to disrespect anyone, with this comparison of like being in a war, anyone that's been in military, for example. But if we're going to just metaphorically say that there's a lot of fallen soldiers around you, and you can. I think when you put it like that, it's, would you want to join them or do you want to live? And the same thing with, okay, well, do you want to succumb to aches, pains, and dehydration, or do you want to finish and feel that sense of accomplishment, feel that sense that you've just done something that you thought you could never do? I looked at a lot of these people and I was empathetic for sure, but I'm not going to be one of you. That's the thing. And like, obviously I could have gone into that race and I could have cramped up, I could have twisted an ankle, I could have gotten dehydrated, I could have not carved myself up correctly and collapsed and fainted because I was low on energy. There's a million things that could have happened to me, just like there's a million things that could have happened to other people. But from a mindset perspective, I looked around and I said, there's no actual fucking ways that I'm going to be one of you guys. I'm not going to be in an ambulance. I'm not going to sit there crying that I've twisted my ankle. I'm not going to sit there having someone stretch me out because I'm cramping and I'm in agony. I'm not going to do that. And this came down to the fact that I'd already finished the race before I started. I knew that no matter what was going to happen, I was going to finish. And I think that obviously leads on to, the topic of how we speak to ourselves. And, I have, going back to the masculine, a high expectation of myself. I know that no one else has expectations of me. None of my friends, family, half of my friends and family for that matter, told me not to do the race because for the 6 to 8 weeks before the race, I was bitching and moaning on my social media or on my stories of, wow, that was a really good run, but my knee fucked out, or that was really good, but my knee gave me issues 3 weeks in. Everybody was telling me not to do this race. I was telling myself, so I got bitten by a spider on that knee 5 days before the race, and I was like, yes, sick, awesome. This is a really great opportunity to use an excuse to not do the race because you actually were just worried about your knee. But like, this is the thing, right? Is that 99% of people out there are complacent. They never push themselves. They never truly reach that true version of themselves that will bring so much more fucking growth to their lives. Like, if you never push yourself and you never get out your comfort zone, you're not going to grow. And so it's easier to stay where you are. It's easier to stay in that safe zone. And so all of these people around me that always stay in their safe zone, that never reach their full potential, that never get out of a comfort zone, they were all the ones telling me, don't do the race. Relax, man. Like, why are you being so hard on yourself? Give yourself time. But like that, how does that make me feel good? Is the people that I'm trying to separate myself from, right? I'm not saying separate because you're bad people, but I I expect myself to be an elite. I expect myself to be the best version that I can be. I'm on an elite athletic level for myself here, not to be better than you, not to be better than anyone else that I'm running with, but I have an expectation of myself, and let's not even say as a man, right? Just as a human being, to be the best version. And when you've got the 99 percenters all telling you not to do something, it almost becomes impossible to want to give in to them because you want to prove them, not just prove them wrong, but just prove to yourself that you are not going to be broken, that you are not going to take on that mindset that 99 percenters have. And so, yeah, that was, I think, for me, a very, very, very important lesson learned, especially on that 38, 40 kilometer mark. But, then you finish the race, and immediately, so I get home that evening and I turn on Netflix, and there's a show about a race in the Sahara Desert, and it's over 6 days. And it's a 240 kilometer race. And it's one marathon a day for 6 days, in like, 50, 60 degree heat, south of Morocco. And this is now what, like 8 hours after I finished the race. I'm lying on the couch, absolutely broken. And I saw this and I thought, that's what you're working towards. But do the Ironman first. So the marathon now, really, if you're looking at it from a percentage perspective of what I'm working towards, the marathon was a very small piece of a massive, massive puzzle. And that was actually just, let's say, when you wake up in the morning, people say, just take the first step and then one foot in front of the other. The marathon, as big as it was on the day, if I look at it now, a week and a half later, it's only the first step of 100,000 steps. And I've already taken the first step. So now I just need to do the next marathon, do the next. It's going to be challenging if I go to a different country, to a different terrain, maybe doing it in wet weather, maybe doing it in extremely hot weather. I might have had this really easy and the next one might completely break me. I'm not saying that I handled it well and that I loved every moment of it. There were times where I really questioned if I was going to finish, but I know that I'm going to finish the next one. I know that I'm going to finish the one after that. I know that I'm going to finish an Ironman, and I know that I will finish the 240 in the desert. I just need to continue to be actionable, because if I put one foot in front of the other and I'm actionable, then it makes it a lot more realistic. Instead of me saying, oh, everyone's saying that that's not possible. Everyone says that, oh, like, Damien, don't do that. You're gonna, you'll have a heart attack. How do you know? You haven't done it. So yeah, I'm in that place right now where it's chase bigger things. Chase bigger things and have fun and enjoy it. You've only got one life. How boring is it that you're going to lie there one day on your deathbed and the angels are going to say to you, so was there this high level of fulfillment? Did you do all the things that you wanted to do or that you knew you could do? You sit there and you're like, no, I spent half my life in front of a computer sleeping or unhappy with myself. The fuck?
Yeah.
That's boring.
There's a phrase that I love, and it's something, it goes along the lines of hell is when you are on your deathbed and you meet the version of yourself that you could be, and then you compare yourself to that.
100%. I think there was even like a David Goggins, no? I don't know. Maybe he said it.
It might be. I've
But
stolen it from
100%,
someone,
dude.
but it's
100,
incredible.
I know. I've seen it on someone's caption, but it's 100% true. Is that like you're going to sit there one day and reflect on everything. And some people will say, well, the worst thing is actually surrounding yourself by negative people. The worst thing is never reaching your full, business potential. So, and for me, I'm taking a little bit of all of that. And I think in the bigger scale of things, just separating myself from the naysayers, separating myself from the people that say things are not possible, that it's going to be a lot harder than what you think. Oh, don't try this because you might fail. I also thought that. What if I run the race and a kilometer in I twist my ankle or I hurt my knee, and then I can't finish the race? Or what if I do the race, I finish the race, and I set myself a good time? And that's exactly what I did. But I didn't have the answer. I didn't know. But I knew that there was more possibility of me doing that than me just sitting around and giving up before I'd actually really put in the time and effort.
That's amazing. Damian, thank you so much for coming on today. Before we leave it, where can people find more about you?
Right, so I've got two avenues of being able to get in touch with me. I've obviously got Instagram, which would be Damian, the at Damian _ the all rounder. And then I do have a website as well, which we've just launched, and that's www.allroundercoaching.com. And you can find me there. And if anyone ever wants to ask me any questions, training, health, fitness related, or more about what I do and how I can help people, you can drop me a message on either platform, and I will be mega fast to get back to you.
Awesome stuff. Thanks for coming on, dude.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time.